Welcome to the project, everyone. Today we have my beloved power supply. Like many of you, I have a childhood power supply, and this is mine. It's a model number 3010D, and it came straight from China. Honestly, it probably had a bit of a hard time coming over, and it doesn't work. So hopefully today we can at least dig into this, look inside of it and get it working, because I would love to have my power supply working again. They're always useful. I actually need this for a project at work. I think it'd be quicker to fix this than to order a new one and spend more money. So let's get this to the bench and start looking at it. So, wow, that was crazy. The bench is a little messy, but you know, maybe we'll move into where it's a little bit warmer. So let's talk about this a little bit. I call this my childhood power supply. I honestly don't expect many of you guys to have something you call your childhood power supply, but this one truly kind of is. So the origin of this is a little bit of a story. When I was in high school, I didn't really know much about electricity, and I decided that maybe I wanted to go into it in college. So at the end of high school, I was like, you know, electrical engineering, you know, maybe that's my jam, and I started going into it. Like my first year or so of electrical engineering, I really started to like learn about electronics and everything, and I was like, man, a power supply would be super useful, and I was really into my own projects and stuff, even outside of school. And so for Christmas, I asked Santa, which Santa was nice enough to oblige for me, you know, probably being like 18, 19. When I went home for Christmas, Santa got me this, which is, I did my own research, and at the time, this was a pretty good deal. And yeah, 3010D power supply from no one. There's literally not a brand name on here at all. So yeah, this is very, very Chinesey. So anyways, Christmas morning, I'm super stoked. I finally can power up my own electronics and everything. Super nice that they bought me a power supply, and I was all excited. I plugged it in and started playing around with it, and it made no sense on what it was doing. Here, I can even show you right now. It just takes the normal NEMA plug. I don't even know if it came with one. Hey, look, the power's already on. Okay, to show you what happened on Christmas morning, I came in here and I was like, oh, okay. And I started kind of doing these things, and I was like, well, I don't think this is working at all like I think. We got 53 volts. Whatever I do doesn't change it, and I didn't really exactly know what CC or CV is, and I was like pretty confused on what the heck was going on. But again, at this time, I was like, this is probably a me issue, not a them issue. And so I packed it away until I could get back to school and start playing around with it a bit more. And even after that, I still was like, well, I just don't think I don't think it's working like it should, but I also don't know if I'm using it like it should be used. So I packed it away to hopefully one day have the knowledge to really figure out if this was working like it should, or maybe even fix it or something. And it's basically sat on the shelf for like 10 years. So now that I am actually an engineer, and I do actually know a bit more stuff, as many of you might know, CC is constant current, CV is constant voltage. Basically, whichever one limits it, it will stick to that one. So that's where here, when we turn the current all the way down, it does start to limit the voltage. But basically, outside of that, these voltage knobs do like absolutely nothing. It's just pegged at 53 volts. Which might be like a 30 volt, but then it's like up at 53 volts. I have checked with the multimeter, and sure enough, these poles are at like 30 volts. Or sorry, 50 volts. So that's the story of this. I basically, super excited on Christmas, said, well, I'm probably an idiot, I don't know how to use it, packed it away for 10 years, and now I'm like, you know, this could actually be pretty useful. Now that we have had a lot of experience, let's dig into it and try to figure it out. But I do have a disclaimer. I did pull this out, and before I started deciding to make a video on it, I kind of just looked to see if I could see anything wrong. So I think I know what's wrong with this. But for the sake of the video, let's continue on, and we'll start digging into it and looking at it. As you can tell, this has not been babied that much, and during shipping, it's had its fair share of stuff happen. It actually looks like it was dropped, because right here the metal's like bent up, so it almost seems like the transformer in here like bent around or something. And a nice little ding in there, and it's old enough that it's started getting a little bit of rust on it. But so I'm going to carefully take this apart. If you haven't taken electronics apart, especially something like this where you have 120, you've got high voltage coming in, you should let it sit for at least a few minutes for all the capacitors and stuff to discharge in there, because capacitors can actually keep voltage for, and dangerous voltage for, quite a while. So if you don't want to get shocked, then make sure you're at least waiting a decent amount before you open this up. And another thing too is when I took this apart to try to figure out if I could see what was wrong with it, there was a lot of other things wrong with it too. I basically went through and nut and bolt checked the entire power supply, and there was a fair few number of bolts or screws that, yeah, they were a bit loose. And not to mention, the power button here on the front had like one of the bolts completely stripped out, and so I found like a different one for that. It's kind of, you know, basically held together with duct tape and zip ties at this point, but I think we can still get it working. Just to give you a really quick overview down in here, we got the 120 coming in, it goes into the transformer. This transformer actually has, you can see we got 110, 50 hertz, whatever. It has a bunch of different outputs depending on what wires you use. So it has a 0 volt, 8 volt, 20 volt, 36 volt output on that. And they probably are tapped into like all of those. We've got little diodes over here, and then these might actually be some of the current regulators. And there's big heat resistors down there. We've got a big fat cap here, another big fat cap up in front. We got our power button on the front. We've got the board for all the LCD displays in there. We've got another board for all the potentiometers. And then we've got what I think is probably most of the like brains and stuff in here. There might actually be some brains in there, but here's the other side. I mean, they did put enough goop on different things, but I mean, I even had to tighten up the bolts holding this board on top in there. And then also one of the other things I noticed was this cable. This cable right here was unplugged. That might have been me when I took it apart before. I plugged that in and it didn't fix it at all, so we still have the issue just like you guys saw. And when looking at this, I mean, obviously the power switch still works. It still turns on. The transformer looks like it's probably doing voltages. It's clicking around between constant current and constant voltage. I did also have to tighten up all these terminals. And I don't really know exactly what the yellow one's for. Maybe I could be off on that. Maybe it's like a voltage sense wherever you're at. But anyways, so most of the things work on that. What doesn't seem to work is these knobs, and specifically the voltage on there. Because if you noticed, if I crank the current all the way down, both coarse and fine, then it does actually switch over to limiting the current. But the voltage, no matter what I do to these knobs, they don't do jack diddly squat. So that's where we're going to start. Let's actually start looking at these, which these knobs are just potentiometers back here on this board. If you didn't know, most of the time, these knobs should just pull off. Oh man, these are being difficult though. I already had these off. I hope I don't make myself look like an idiot by doing this. We got all the faces of these knobs off, and then there's just a 10 mil nut to pull this board out. But first what we might want to do is just kind of reach in here and do what they tell you not to by pulling on the wires to unplug it. Yeah, so that board's unplugged. We just need to pull off these nuts, and then you can probably see what the issue is. So let me grab a 10 mil socket and then come back. Well, I can tell you right now, notice how I'm moving. I can move these, but this guy is not really moving that much. So let's try to get this board out. Can you guys find the problem? Which that makes sense. This is the coarse adjustment, so if the coarse adjustment wasn't working, then it probably just had it pegged, so the fine adjustment didn't do anything. In this little PCB, if you notice, there's a 1K, 10K, 5K, 50K, so the coarse is like a 10 times, or, an order of magnitude of what the smaller one is. So yeah, that's why it wasn't working. Well, I guess when this tumbled, it broke off. But you know, looking at this, there's some little traces on here. I really think maybe we can fix this. So against my better judgment, let's take this inside and actually pull apart this potentiometer and see if we can get this running tonight, because that would be awesome. Rather than having to like, because there's no Radio Shack anymore, so I can't go somewhere and pick this up. I'd have to like order off DigiKey or something, and I don't feel like doing the research. So let's go inside to where it's a bit warmer. We'll desolder that side and then see if we can't start pulling apart that potentiometer. Welcome to the inside bench. So we're going to desolder this part of the PCB of the potentiometer, and then we're going to take apart the potentiometer and see if we can't get it to walk. Alright, so we did pull apart the potentiometer, and as you can maybe see down in here, there's two little wipers right in here, and then there's an inside track and outside track. So you can actually see right here, you've got the inside track that goes around, and then the two outer ones go to the outside track. And so that's where the wiper in the middle, if you measure between the two outsides, you should get 50K, which is what this potentiometer is, because it's just the whole outside track. But the inside track, if you measure to here and the two wipers are right here, then it's going to be 0. But as you go up and up and up and up and up, it's going to start getting closer to this terminal. So it's all, you know, if you measure here and the wipers are over here, then you'll get 50K. If you measure here and the wipers are here, you'll get 0. Or, you know, like, yeah, basically 0 ohms. So that's where, to get this to work, they basically short out two of these and then use the other two. So we do need both the inside wiper, or the inside track, and the outside track to work. And what I was hoping, which I thought I could maybe do, was actually just dab solder onto here, make a little solder bridge, and sure, you know, it might be a little screwed up, but then if we do like epoxy on the backside to support it, then the little bit of solder to bridge it all together should work. But I tested on here, I put some solder onto the terminal, and it took the solder just fine, but over here, this coating or whatever they have that's conductive does not want to take the solder at all. And it looked like I started just destroying it a bit, trying to even solder onto it. So, see, look, we go on, heat it up, nothing. And I'm melting my vise. So anyways, long story short, cool little inside wiper, outside wiper, bridges the two, inside track, outside track, kind of cool. I don't think I'm actually going to be able to fix this now that we've taken this apart. I also, in taking this, I cut a chunk out so I could try to solder to the inside track there. And I did kind of crack the little plastic piece which holds the wipers. So, yeah, we are going to have to buy a new potentiometer. Or maybe I have one lying around, but I don't know. I'll have to go check. One thing of interest, of note here, you notice the PCB says 5K there. If I look under, this says 1K, this says 1K, and this says 10K. And these are flopped. So this board, obviously, they're able to use for a few different versions. But in my version, this is actually the coarse adjustment, and this is the fine adjustment. And then the values are all over the place. Again, we had 5K for fine, 50K for coarse, and then we had 10K for coarse and 1K for fine. So whatever, you know, the silkscreen does not match. Silkscreen doesn't match, but it shouldn't matter. If we get a 50K and slap it in there, it should work. So let me go see if I have something, and if not, then I'm going to order stuff, and we will see you when I have the parts. So I broke down and I bought a little kit with all these potentiometers, and honestly, I think I bought some potentiometers in the past, and this kit was like cheaper than one. So this kit was super cheap, and I don't know if it's just the style of potentiometers, but they're pretty ubiquitous. So I just got a kit that has some 50Ks in there, and they do look like they're the exact same size. And I measured it, and all of these are really not super accurate. So this one is also not super accurate. They're just super cheap off-the-shelf Chinese potentiometers. But there is a little tab. There's a tab. There we go. Right there on this top side, there's a tab that we got to break off. And I think if I just grab some pliers, I could probably grab it and then just tear it off like that. Okay, so yeah, now we just solder this up and then go take it in the garage and reinstall it. Same height, should be good to go. Okay, so we have the potentiometer in. Let's go ahead and plug it in and see if it works. If this finally works. Hey look, 11 volts. Hey look, I can actually change the voltage on there. And then of course we can bring the current all the way down. So yeah, there we go. Oh look, it's not at 56 volts, it's at 30 volts, which I think is what it's supposed to be at. So apparently if you change this, you could maybe get up to 50 some odd volts. I don't know if it's actually usable. There we go. Use the fine adjustment. 12 volts. I did bring my cubby light controller here. So we're gonna see if we can power up the cubby light controller with this. It'll be a little hard because these terminals kind of suck and I don't have like C-clamps. All right, here a second. We're gonna get this hooked up. Okay, 12 volts. Let's see if we can't blow this up. There we go. Look, and this thing, I wonder if the current sensing is not working on it. Because I mean, that should be taking some current, changing all those LEDs and stuff. So what did I break? But hey, 12 volts are coming out. At least I think so. $12.05. Like nothing on that guy. Yep, 12.05. I mean, yeah, that's within spec. I guess let's see if we can't figure out why the current sensing's not working now. Because it was displaying stuff before, but now it's not. So upon further investigation, I think the current is working. We can only see the 10th position on the current here. So my little cubby light controller, I had the lights turned down, and so like it can draw a decent amount of current if I have them like on white blasting. Yeah, there's not enough current there. So I did find some little banana plugs with alligator clips, set up an old head unit I have with a speaker on there, and this should at least be able to draw enough current to start seeing it on there. And I set up my oscilloscope here just looking at the lines, so we can go ahead and try this out. There you go. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. There's a decent spike right there. But anyways, so now we're sitting here, 12 volts, and turn it on. You can see 0.2. And if we turn up so it's driving the speaker more, yeah, so this 3010D, I think it means 30 volts, 10 amps, which is why we have, you know, the 10s place and the 1 place. Or else you'd probably have, yeah. So this should actually do a decent bit of output. Like, I should be able to drive a decent bit of stuff with this. And it's completely working. So we can even go up to like 14 volts here. It's gonna go outside here. Oh, 15, let's go 14.5. Or just right on 14. There we go, and let's see. So cool, it's working. Yeah! I have never in my life seen this work, so to finally see this doing some stuff, I mean, that's pretty sweet. It's a little dinged up, but you know, it's survived a long time. And now it's ready to begin service. It's been alive for 10 years and now it's finally ready to start doing stuff. Man, that makes me excited. I'm glad I've kept this. Glad I didn't throw it out. Glad you guys could be here with me to figure out what was wrong with this. I think banana clips are a must for this. Any other way of connecting wire to these terminals is not ideal. Alright, since I had all this out, I couldn't help myself, so I made sure I had a good connection. I put this rag to kind of help isolate the rear wave from that, and I actually did get an aux cable. Let's give it a true test. Cranked up all the way, it's gonna sound like crap, but let's go! I love that song. Okay, anyways, now that we blasted it, what was that? That was like, I think I saw like 1 amp or so, at least. So, it works. I mean, I could even use this for like the garage sound system, but we have other stuff for that. Anyways, there you have it, guys. We fixed my childhood power supply. Thing's running like a champ now. It's a little beat up, but yeah, I would say it's a pretty easy one. Might be a little bit of a shorter video, but at least wanted to bring you guys along for this project. It was a lot of fun. 10 amps, 30 volts, that's a decent bit of power in there. So you'll probably see this on the channel in the future if we ever need. It took many years to get to this point, but we did it, guys. We did it. The potentiometers I used, granted, I don't know how long they'll last, but I'll put them down in the description if you guys want those. If this is your first time to the channel, I hope you hit the subscribe button so I can see you on the next project. This one was pretty fun. I'm glad that we had you. Hope to see you on the next project, but until then, hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you later. Bye.